afternoon. This is your Pan-African show called Afreeqa with your host Katsalaorq Seifu. We have a great guest for you today. Welcome to our show. If you could please introduce yourself.
Salam no Ethiopia, hello Africa. Katsala, so grateful and so thrilled that you got me here. My name is Bhavesh Chandaria. I'm African by heart, Indian by birth. I am currently the executive director and general manager for Ethiopian Steel PLC, the Mbesa Korkoro company, which is here since 27 years. Ethiopian Steel PLC is part of Safal Group. Safal Group operates in 8 countries and in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, almost 5.5 decades. But today I am in the capacity of a pure African by heart, and whatever I'm talking is my personal views.
Well, thank you for coming to our show. So, as the general manager of Ethiopian Steel PLC, what can you tell us about the company and also about Safal Group?
Safal Group operates in Africa in 8 countries, east and southern part of Africa. We are the largest manufacturers of korkoro, what we call the roofing metal sheets.
Yes.
In Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda, our footprint is more than 5.5 decades. In Ethiopia, we are here for 27 years. And we are evolving into a leading force, which is African, proudly African, into the building solution space. And we are bringing value addition to Africa, generating employment, paying tax since decades. And korkoro is a basic need for shelter, and we believe in giving cake when people want bread. In mid-90s, we adopted technology of LU zinc, where we were even the first one in the region, not only Africa, but beyond Africa. So we believe in giving cake when people would probably be happy with bread in terms of quality. Okay. We consider ourselves African, and the bounties of Africa and the goodness of Africa needs to be harnessed and given back to Africans in a multiplied fashion.
Beautiful. So they say you are a passionate and an expert at making organizations effective by developing talent. Can you describe how you do that?
I agree with you half. I'm passionate, and I would desist calling myself an expert, but I keep trying. I'm humble enough to learn from my mistakes. To make organization effective is both science and an art. My heart aches when I see arrested development, or when I see suboptimality, or when I see something could be done but for the organizational design or the organizational policies or the organization imposed restrictions. So in order to develop organization, one has to be, it is an intention planned initiative, whereby the performance happens, but it's blocked because of, constrained because of certain unknown factors in terms of policies, empowerment, trust, culture, strategy, implementation. Anything could be a reducer. And if you look at theory of constraints and you find constraints and you kind of unbottleneck them, then you kind of release the flow of performance. So organizational development is an intentioned initiative where we look at the blocks, and it's a huge subject to be not to be able to cover here, but you look at things. Are you closer to the front line? I keep telling my employees, who pays your salary? It's not the company, it's the customer who pays your salary, indirectly. So if, are we serving our customers in the earnest that they deserve to be served? So are we closer to the front line? I tell you, I was in HR, I was in training, and then I became a CEO. But from the days immemorable, till when I was a young professional, I would go 3 days in a quarter to see where my company's employee-customer encounters happen. Where is the money made? And I would observe it. And I still encourage all my professional people to see and to face customers. So are we closer to customer, and are we serving the customers in an unrestrained way, the way they would have opted for or they would have expected, then you become a good organization. This is just a tip of an iceberg, one example of the whole thing.
Right.
And of course, once you develop organization, you make it friendlier and conducive for performance, then you may want to go into talent development, empowerment, culture, other aspects.
Why did you choose to become a coach who specializes in developing corporate leaders and youth?
I was lucky enough to get the best coaching right at the right time, which is giving you the leverage point. When I was in hostel in Mumbai, I found many coaches in my hostel who are very senior to me. So it's kind of onerous on me to give back. And but for that coaching that I got from multiple people during that age, I wouldn't have been where I am today. So one is to pay back. My answer to you is, why not coach? Because it aches my heart and it agonizes me to see an arrested development. When a potential is partially recognized, and the pain that enlightened or aware people face is that you know that there is a stretch possible in performance, and the fact that you know it pains you more. And ignorance is bliss though. But if you know it, that this person can give, easily do the 10% extra incremental, just but for that one or two behavioral or one or two blocks that can be easily unblocked. So the coaching is an invite to me to kind of unlock that little potential that people can do. And it's liberating and fulfilling to see when people realize that. When we start, it's not easy. But if you look at the hindsight and if you see how the journey went from where they were, it gets worse before it gets better. But when you are here in the hindsight, it's so fulfilling. And it's so rewarding when people tell you in future, later on, they tell you that, wow, you helped me with this and this happened. So I was a dean of a B school at a very young age in India, in western part of India, a remote part of India, at a young age of 26 years without having a PhD. I led an MBA college. And I remember, and I told my students, listen, I don't claim myself expert, but we'll learn together. And we successfully, I led the organization for 4 years before I came to Africa. And many of my students today are big industrialists or they achieved a lot. And they tell me the first interview you gave me a mock session and you told me how to do it, or my first paper or first application you helped me, or you taught me this skill, and it really, really, liberates me and motivates me to do much better. I just saw a beautiful pearl of wisdom by Emperor Haile Selassie. A qualified man with the right vision, unmoved by daily selfish interest, would be guided to right decision by his concise. Or her concise. It's just there on your mat, and it's so liberating, and it's my epiphany moment for today. It kind of personifies what happened to me.
Wow.
So you still have your daily schedules, right, which don't allow us, but when we're planning to have this, and here I am, because you can superimpose developmental activities into your daily schedules, because there's a concept called LBDB, looking busy and doing bullshit. All right. So what I'm saying is you get trapped into your schedules, right, but if you listen to your higher calling and if you make time, the other things will still happen.
Absolutely.
So that's why I coach. I try to.
Brilliant.
And for corporate leaders, they are well programmed and there's a lot of funds available. But for the youth, probably there are not templated programs. There are not many funds available. And the irony is, the corporate leaders don't have energy or time, but they have money. And the problem and the irony is, youth have energy, intention, time, but they don't have money or opportunity,
right,
or coaching. So if we can kind of marry that.
I know, especially because currently Africa has a very young population. So unless we somehow get engaged with them, then how are we going to bring them up into the political or into the CEO world?
Africa offers the best demographic dividends opportunity right now. If we get our governance in place, which is a big ask, but if we even pull 3% of the youth pool and give them the right coaching, right opportunity, and conducive environment, they will lift the rest of the 60 odd percentage. So what I am looking for is a leverage point where your minimum smart effort can give you disproportionately high rewards. And those brightest 3% people, if they are coached and if they are given, because that's what you can do to start with. Enemy of good is best. In the sense, you aim for best, it never happens. Start doing small little things. So provide this 3% leverage point, and they will mesmerize, they will galvanize the rest. I believe so. And that much we can do. And then we encourage others to do that 3%.
Absolutely.
So Africa is sitting on a nuclear potential of this youth. And if they can juggle the ball so well, if they can dance effortlessly so well, if they can smile happily in spite of all the troubles they face, and if they are so closer to nature and their affinity to their culture is so amazing, the rest of the world is lost it. And imagine if these people are given the right opportunity, I am telling you, Africa is going to rock the world very soon.
I agree.
2 decades maybe.
Earlier you had mentioned arrested development. Just to make our audience understand what it means.
Africa is in this space of arrested development. To me, I may be wrong, but what I believe is on a couple of counts. One is the mindset. We have drawn an imaginary wall of restrictions to achieve ourselves, and we need to increase the size of appetite, our size of aim, and we need to unshackle that imaginary cage in which we live. So we need to think big, have conviction and courage and confidence that we can do it. So we African need to first, everything is created here first, and we need to unshackle ourselves. So one is that piece of mental. The second piece is, of course, the behavioral part. I don't understand why culturally so rich Africa, why Africa is so well connected with nature, sustainability, happiness, family values, then why is it that we are not adopting some good enabling behaviors? Like, I tell you, I'm not complaining and I'm not accusing, but I see in my experiences of working in 4 countries by living and working, and remotely working in another 4 countries in Africa. Tell me, what does it take? You don't need an education to show up on time.
No.
You don't need any kind of education to be well prepared. You don't need any education or any kind of policy to give status update on the task that is given to you. So certain aspects, if we can tweak and get into our already enriched culture, then that 10% is visibly up for the grab. So that's the second part of the arrested development. Why are we not skilling ourselves? It's a simple attitude skill that we require to be done. And the third aspect is, of course, the governance. Africa tends to be undergoverned. I mean, it is not perfectly governed, and hence a lot of opportunities are wasted in unwanted wars or civic issues and all. We need to focus on what we can influence and what we can do. So that two part is where we are limiting ourselves. And nobody but us can influence or impact that aspect.
How do Africans unlock their highest potential?
I already told, get the right attitude on already enriched culture. You're physically fit, you're close to nature, you are sustainable, you have good cultural values, you love your family, you're happy people. Absolutely. So if that is in place, what is it that is missing? The missing is so easy to get. So the missing is get up, aim big, be prepared, show up on time, give status reports, be ICT savvy. One thing is there, adopt technology, be bilingual if possible or multilingual. I can still smile in Amharic, okay, what I mean to say, or Kiswahili or Kinyarwanda, okay. But what I am trying to say is get these things in place and putting an earnest effort and aim big. And African, I tell you, we can be ready for realizing. One more thing on a career path, we need to go wider. That is an inch deep and a mile wide, and try in the early career, get multiple exposures. And that starts even at the schooling. 1 day in a life of a doctor, 1 day in a life of, or 1 week in a life of a medicine, 1 week in a life of tourism, 1 week in a life of a finance guy, 1 week in a life of manufacturing, 1 week in a life of NGO, non-profit. Let them have that exposures before they nail it, that what they want to do it. So inch deep but a mile wide to begin with, and then later on have mile deep into 2 or 3 functions.
Gotcha.
A tripod. So that you are specialized, because the pace of change is going to unshackle many things. So you can't be dependent on one leg of a tripod. You got to be on 3 legs. 1 leg would be constant, but 2 legs could be swapping within the times that the change comes. So Africans can do it, and I'm a confirmed optimist. And in 2 decades, you will see Africa will be there.
What do you think of today's ways of teaching? Since you just brought up education and inserting these different aspects of educating or having students experience certain kinds of work at the workforce. So overall,
in the education spectrum, we have a wide variety. We have the top 10% of African schools as good as the world class. But I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about the middle and the bottom. We are woefully lacking basics. Infrastructure bottleneck also affects the cultural issues and the economic issues of the students, make them go away from the schools. But basically, the pivotal point in liberating the education to realize the potential and get out of the arrested development is teachers and head teachers. The 3% leverage point comes if we get all head teachers, their heart and their mind in the right place. It is the head teacher that encourages the teacher. And if a head teacher is liberated, if she is made aware how to engage with teachers, then it is a great space. I do a lot of, along with my wife, I do a lot of workshops to emancipate the head teacher space. The problem is we trust teachers with the most valuable resource called students' time. You put a teacher and 30 students in the class and you trust that to happen. But you don't trust a teacher to do 5 photocopying or to take 10 pens or to resources. Now tell me one thing, isn't that ironical and isn't that sad? You're trusting them with more valuable resource called time of the students. And you know that a space of teacher, a teacher can do 10% of the total 100 and still tick in the box that she or he has done a job. Or a teacher would still be unhappy after delivering 200% for a conscientiously nice teacher, that, oh, I could have still done it like this, or I could have still done. So the spectrum, there are no yardstick to measure teachers' performance in the classroom. And the best way is to trust them, empower them, engage them. And if that space happens, and the pivot point over there is the head teachers. And the next pivot point is the policy makers. So how do we do that is a huge Herculean task.
How can Africa stop the brain drain?
Why should we stop it? I think the intellectuals cannot be confined. I have a reverse view and a contrarian view. Let our African top 5% or 10% go and conquer the world. Some dividends will always come back. You came back from Los Angeles, didn't you?
I sure did.
So what happens is, let them go conquer the world. Let the world know the goodness of Africa. Let them mesmerize the rest of the world. And I'm sure the dividends would come back here. And I want to say, every one African that goes out would definitely benefit a dozen, directly or indirectly. And I tell you one thing, make our B team so good that it's as good as the A. If the A's go, then the B's would get opportunity. The problem with Africa is disproportionately skewed opportunity space. I am not a proponent of giving reservations or giving allocations to anybody based on any unmeritorious way. I would rather say give everybody an opportunity. An opportunity should be equally given, offered, but let the meritorious grab it. So if there are Western universities who are giving scholarships and our best brains are going there, let them benefit the rest of the world. Ubuntu. Okay, Africa has a large heart and dividends will come back. So I am not worried about brain drain. Our B team should be as good as our A team.
I like that. It's a completely different perspective of how you actually see it, which I like.
I used to tell my people that if I left Mumbai and I came to Africa to work here, at least one other person in Mumbai got a job, which I had. And in that busy train of Mumbai, there is one less person. And India, what India was 20 years back, is what Africa today, probably. So Africa has so much of population. Yeah, we 1.25 billion now and counting. So export people.
Educate them. How can we leverage on human capacity and potential?
Very big question, but the issue is first believe in it. Second is remove roadblocks. Third is human capacity is the only resource which has unlimited potential. You put finance, it can deliver this much. You put machinery, it can deliver, it has a max out capacity. You put machines, it has a maximum load capacity. You can't operate a car more than 8 packs, or you can't operate your elevator more than 13. It has a capacity, but human capacity has unlimited potential. And first is appreciate this fact. Secondly, I'm a proponent of this, people support what they help create. So engage people into their problems, into the solution making, and onboard them, enroll them into the co-creation of solutions early. And once you do that, your solutions are grounded with reality, they are pre-engaged, and then they will adopt that. So human potential could be realized with that, with a beautiful and effective feedback and feed-forward loops. When I say feedback, at the same point in time, my managers would get 2 mails or 2 feedback. One is wow, when you do something great and it is absolutely objective, you did great task, this task in a great fashion, wow. And the second could be a PA, a performance alert. If a person repeatedly doesn't do something which is expected to be done by a certain standard, which may cause others or the company harm, then don't be shy to give a performance alert, but it should be done in a fashion which is encouraging. You were expected to do this, you did not do this, it caused company this loss, others this loss, what training I can give you, what are the reasons, is it one-off, I have observed that as a pattern, how can I coach you, how can I help you, how can I resource you, and consequence, if going forward you continue to do so, it's not good. So, human potential, the problem is, when you wake up in the morning, you look at the mirror, do you disagree with your mirror? Sometimes you don't like what you see, I'm 10 kgs fatter, but you don't disagree, it's still you, isn't it?
Exactly.
People refuse to smell the coffee, people refuse to look at the reality, and one has to look at the mirror and say, wow, fine, I have a 10 kgs more, but I still could be awesome, and I will do that, and this is where the fat is, and I'm going to work on it. You can't disagree to a feedback of a reality. And that is one of the pivotal points in the journey of realizing human capital. If we don't acknowledge that we are in a mess, we are living in a fool's paradise. So it's a huge topic to have human capacity unlocked. But 1 or 2 of these nuggets can really kickstart the rest. If you have the right heart and the right attitude in place, the skills and techniques and the frameworks would follow.
Exactly.
The issue is, are you tenacious and persistent enough to continue? And like I say, hockey cow, it will go worse before it gets better. See, till I am drinking and until I am gallivanting, everything is fine. It is when I go to rehab and I realize that I want to stop alcohol, I want to get better, it is that part when your body throws up, when your societal issues come in, it is when you want to reform yourself, the problem comes. And when you want to reform, if you are tenacious, if you have faith, if you get right coaching, if you get somebody to hold your arm, if you get the right technique, if the organization takes care of you, then you come up.
Can you please tell us about what was appraised by participants across Africa at the recent Pan-African Youth Summit held in Addis Ababa?
I think, first of all, kudos to the purpose. The Ministry of Labor and Social Skills and Dr. Argogi and the government did this conference, which is very good. It was a confluence of wannabes from all over Africa, the youth leaders. They came and there was a conference, there were seminars, there were workshops, and there were networking events. It was one of the finest well executed conferences that I attended. I spoke on basically giving confidence to Africans, the youth, and very much I repeated here in terms of having faith. I told them, get up before startup. They used to say startup. I said, first get up, wake up, have confidence. So I did tell them that, be ready. When readiness meets opportunity, and opportunity quite often goes to the ones who are ready. So my message to the youth in the short time that I was given was to be ready, to be prepared, to have conviction, and to garner opportunities across in Africa, in neighborhoods, in agro. And it is called that agro is uncool, but according to me, today I heard, I got a forward on social media that in UK they are rationing cucumbers and tomatoes because they don't have food. Awesome. And what I am trying to tell is Africa is land for abundance. We have so much, and if we can really focus ourselves into what is so African and so good, and if you have confidence, and if we kind of create value onto that and sell it to the world is up for grabs for us. There were some sessions where we spoke about roundtables and the solution making and other things, and the youth really surprised us with the beautiful suggestions they had. I tell you one thing, many of the participants there were better than me as a speaker. The issue is opportunity, and people don't like big lectures. They want meaningful. For lectures, they can go to Google. They resonate with meaningful suggestions, and I always measure myself that if I speak for 20 minutes, would people walk out with to-do list of 3 or 4 things that they would be doing it differently, and so whether would they know what to do differently, and whether they are motivated to do that differently. And then the impact starts from the moment my talk ends. And that's how I measure myself. And probably that's how you got this feedback. You asked me something about Africa earlier. Why? I tell you one thing, land into any airport or any public place or any hotel or any market, and you smile at a stranger, and an African would smile back, and it's genuine. I have seen that up to an extent in Far East, be it Thailand or Indonesia, somewhere I've seen that, Bangkok probably. Okay, but I haven't seen that much in Western world. You might have seen, if you smile, you attacking the privacy. If in a tube train in a Western world, if you look at somebody because somebody is wearing something curious, you have to be conscious not to meet eye contact. What the hell, man? I mean, in Africa, we are so naturally forthwith and welcoming, and that's what Africa is. Genuinely,
it truly is.
Isn't it?
It truly is. Because you just made me remember certain aspects of the West. I noticed you've worked in a lot of African countries, and it seems like you've dedicated your life to the development of Africa's potential. How did you get into that?
I discovered that earlier. I was coaching in India as well, and liberating this youth or people who were having this so-called barriers. But when I came to Africa, and especially the epiphany moment came to me when my wife was teaching in Thika, Kenya, to a school, and she was so well respected and so well followed and revered. And then I started talking to various places, wherever I was invited, and I saw the receptivity ratio was amazing, and that made me become even better at giving, because they would receive it so well. So that encouraged me, and it's a positive reinforcement. That's one. Secondly, the biggest opportunity or the gap is in Africa right now. So when you see gap, and it pains and it aches your heart, and then you want to do something, receptivity is good. Thirdly, it's my karma bhuvi. In our Gita, in Indian spiritualism, there is a place where you are born, it's the birthplace, and there's a place where you work. It's called karma bhumi, where I am working. Karma means where I am. So if I am earning out of Africa, if I am living here, if I am consuming life, why not give it back? And why not make a small little go, like one of my former bosses used to say, go mad, Vimal Shah of Bidco, Kenya. So he used to say, go mad, so MAD, make a difference. So if you can make a difference, why not? And I try. I'm not sure how much it impacts, but I try.
Do you think Africa is ready for change?
Yeah, I think so. Compared to rest of the world, Africa malleability, change readiness is there. Africa will surprise everybody in 2 decades. You already see the French football team in the previous World Cup had 6 or 7 Africans. So I used to call them the Africa won the FIFA World Cup, not this, the one before that. If you see this time, Africans also made a dent. Football, be it cultural music, kind of films that are being made here, the books that are written from Africa. We have natural resources. We do have all it takes to be the next superpower. Forget we don't want to be superpower, but at least we can lift ourselves from below the hygiene factor to hygiene factor and thrive. Africa would change. The problem is that if we leverage and juxtapose our already good qualities like our culture, family orientation, sustainability, and goodness of people with some professionally good, well accepted attitudes and behaviors and skills, if we juxtapose both together and weft them, I'm sure we would be. We need right coaching, we need faith and good governance, which doesn't stop us with distractions.
How do you leverage people's unlimited potential?
First of all, don't stop it. Find out with an inquiring mind, with an intent to understand. Listen. Every organization, every school, every society, every individual is unique. Their context is unique. So you can't slap or superimpose already known solution to an unknown problem. Just because I have a vaccine, you don't have to have COVID. To give you an analogy, earlier there were wars, and that's why there used to be arm manufacturing.
Right.
Now there is so much of arm manufacturing, so they are manufacturing war. You're getting my point? So just
Yes.
because I have a solution to a problem, I don't have to tell you that you got to have this problem. I have a vaccine, that doesn't mean you need to have COVID. So what I'm saying is, you first need to diagnose. Listen to the context and nuances of the space, that is the organization, unit, society, family, youth, school, whatever it is. And everything is unique. You have to listen with, and then once you listen, you validate. Diagnose, you validate, and then find or tweak the solutions that could be most appropriate. If Africa can remove guinea worm disease, how horrible it was. Guinea worm, it was infected by water, and there is no way you can isolate water.
Right.
And an infected person going into water would infect the whole water and infect the whole village. And if we can almost eradicate that, I think we can do anything that we can. It requires the right skill, the will, at individual level, at social level, and at systematic level. The skill and will, we need to have that. As Vital Smarts, one of the frameworks, they say individual skill, individual will, social skill, social will, and structural or systematic skill and systematic will. So if any change can be done, we can realize our potential. And food security, natural resources, minerals are available in abundance in Africa. Okay. Our ecosystem still boasts of balanced coexistence of flora, fauna with human beings. So we have it all that it takes. I tell you, Africa is a place which is more secured for future, which is more resilient to future. And I think that potential realization in Africa is possible. And that leverage point is those 3-4 things we do.
All the things that you've actually just explained, I have a feeling you have to be a strategic thinker and a problem solver in order to work with all the issues that Africa has. How do you think one can become a good strategic and problem solver? So
I tell you one thing, people would believe in you when you solve their problems and you remove the soreness. In my kind of jobs, I am given 2 years to restructure or to make an inefficient company efficient. The time is against you. It's like Mission Impossible movie. You come, you meet, you do it, and you go. So first is, people would believe in authentic leaders who solve their problems. So whether you are genuinely interested in solving the problem is the first 33%. The second is, do you find the problems and the solutions? Are you having that cognitive horsepower to do that? Okay. And the third is, do you have the wherewithals to engage people and solve the problems? And please understand, problem solving is not just the start, it is the end, delivered, solved problem. So in that execution and implementation, you got to be having people together with you. So once you solve problems with that intent, that cognitive diagnosis and finding the solutions, not templated but bottom up, and then engaging people, rallying their support, enrolling them to change behavior, to solve the problem. People, that's the first step. Are you genuine? And please understand, people don't judge you by your intentions, they judge you by your results. You judge yourself by intention, but people judge you by the intention delivered, the results delivered. So once you solve the problems, inch by inch you get the heart space. And then strategic is about environmental scan, your objectives, your relative competitive advantage, what are the levers of growth, what are the pitfalls or obstacles, how do you deal with that. And you do that in isolation, but you also do relative to others, because in a jungle, if you and I are there in a jungle and if you see a cheetah, I don't have to outrun the cheetah, I have to outrun you. Sorry to say on a dirty. So strategy is all about a relative play in context of the competitors, because resources and opportunities are finite, time is finite, and in that space how do you score in vis-a-vis the others. So it's a whole corporate ball game to kind of, but whether you have IQ, EQ, emotional quotient, SQ, social quotient and relational quotient, and PQ, a physical quotient. So it's an interplay of all four, and it's not an addition game, it's a multiplication game. When you multiply, any one is 0, all of them are 0, or any one is negative, all of them would be negative. So how you play all the four spots and deploy them in a positive, in an aligned way, you could probably be succeeding.
How do you think one learns patience in Africa?
You know, there was a joke. I was such an impatient guy. In India, I was running 32 countries as a global head for training. And I had some excellent staff supporting me and making me look good, because they would handle 350, 400 mails on my behalf, and I used to just be with the chairperson and do the frontlining. And my friends used to tell me, I was so impatient that my friends used to tell me that even in the womb of my mother, I would have stayed only 7 months. I was that fast and impatient. And then I come to Tanzania in 2013, and I learned patience. I would meet people and they say, "Habari yako, how are you, Bhavesh?" And I'll say, "Habari yako, how are you?" Then they will say, "How is your family?" Then I would repeat, "How is your family?" Then they say, "How's your neighborhood? How's your everything?" And guess what? The same person meets me in the afternoon.
Asks you the same question.
And then you can't go direct, you have to go. So go slow to go fast. And if you hit the heart alignment, attunement with the heart, and if you relationally work on the SQ, the social quotient and the relational quotient first, put your right emotions second, and then go to the IQ level, it's better. So Africa teaches you patience. And why not smell the coffee? Why not smell the beautiful flower and have a look at it? It's as bountiful to all. So Africa teaches you patience. But I would say it's also a good technique to go slow to go fast. I'm still fast. I still prefer to be fast. I learned from the lean Six Sigma Japanese technique. Six Sigma is all about accuracy, less than 6 errors in a million, and lean means all about speed and removing roadblocks and wastages. So we got that in Africa, in our previous organization, and I would still want Africa to not be unnecessarily patient. Be patiently impatient. What I mean to say is go slow to go fast, and have some lean approach, lean Kaizen approach into your life. Okay. We don't have unlimited time also. And you know the rubber band you use, a rubber band
for the
tie.
hair.
You know, how does a rubber band work? You have a rubber band with this much of circumference or a diameter. It will work only when it's stretched.
Exactly.
So if your rubber band is this big and your arm is small, it is useless. So rubber band works when it is stretched. Time, if there is no stretch component, there is no fun. But there is a difference between a slight stretch, which is called eustress, or de-stress. If you stretch the rubber band too much, it will be breaking. It will be tearing down. You're getting my point?
Yes.
So always keep a rubber band in a healthy stretch.
How important is education in Africa?
I believe interimly for next 2 decades, while we pursue formal educations and the formal thing, which is essential, I'm not saying, but for those who miss the bus, let's take the vocational route. Let's have 20 or 200,000 carpenters. Let's have 200,000 or 500,000 plumbers, electricians, car mechanics, nurses. Vocational is the way to go. It generates employment. It's closer to nudge. Gardeners, bilinguistic housemaid and caretakers and caregivers. Africa has so much of land. I was talking the other day to a policymaker in another country that why can't we have a 20,000 bed retirement home? Our weather is so good. The Western world has pensioners whom government pays huge taxes. So why don't they ship them here for 6 months? We take care of everything, including massage, healthcare, giving, food, everything. And we are so good at hospitality, and we earn the hard currency. And they go back, and the other cold countries from the south could come in the other. So we become home, and those who retire here would spend money for entertainment, for food, for other things, and it will so vocational is a way to go. Having said that, we have to pursue and correct our education system. At least the bottom 30-35% has to be lifted to a basic hygiene level. Vocational is way to go.
Okay. This is going to be our last question. How is Africa and the Indian connection? How is our connection with India?
You know, the Asiatic Lions are in my hometown, Gujarat.
Okay.
And only other place lions are in Africa. All right. So to me, let's talk about Ethiopia, India. Our food has so much of commonality.
Yes.
Lalibela is a place of worship cut out of a rock, I believe.
Yes.
We have temples in India. They were cut out of the rock. And intricate archaeological stuff is done. It's awesome. The food habits, our place of worship, the best thing is attitudinally and our family values. In India, if you disrespect a woman, you kind of boycotted. Here, the respect for women by the Ethiopian culture and many other African culture is amazingly there. Our language in terms of Swahili has many words like kitabu, meza, is so much Persian Indian kind of stuff. So I believe we have a lot of things in common, and each country can benefit by adopting the goodness of the other.
True.
And both companies, India's population is equal to Africa's. So we are in the same space, except that Africa has much more natural resources, much more space. Democracy is where we are contrasting each other. We need functioning democracies in Africa, probably. I think linguistically, India is as diverse as Africa. They say every 100 kilometers language or dialect changes, and so is Africa. Common harmonies that we can really appreciate out of each other. And best thing about life is I have seen both and very closely. That makes me amazingly happy. Beautiful. And privileged.
Beautiful.
Best of both the worlds.
Yes. So we thank you very much for giving us your time and having this conversation with us. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, crew. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for tuning in. This is your Pan-African show called Afreeqa on Arts TV every Saturday afternoon from 4 to 5. This is your host, Katsala Seifu. Thank you.